It's time to talk. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. I'm your boy, Carl E. Long, your podcaster extraordinaire. And when episode 59 today. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about, guys. We have a lot to talk about. This world is going crazy. It's going crazy, and it's driving me out of my mind. Everybody's thinking, chill out, Carl. I hear some of the commenters that sent me the message today on one of my podcasts said, man, chill out. I was like, it's very hard to chill out. I don't understand how people can be so chill with what's going on in America today. It's time to wake up, folks. It ain't time to be chill. It's time to put some things in action. We got to do something, and we got to do something today. So, episode 59 today, I want to talk about something that's been weighing on me. Have we as Americans become so afraid of conspiracy theories that we've stopped asking real questions? I mean, there was a time in this country when questioning power wasn't just accepted, it was expected. But somewhere along the way, something has changed. I mean, the word conspiracy has become a weapon. I mean, the moment you ask a difficult question, the moment you notice something that doesn't quite add up, you risk being labeled dismissed or even silenced. And once that label is attached to you, everything you say about that gets ignored. So what's happened then? We stop asking. So for today's episode, this is the title of the episode on today. Afraid to ask? Truth or conspiracy? The questions they don't want you to ask. Question it. Get labeled. And we're going to cover some things about the recent Supreme Court ruling on the Voting Rights Act. We got to talk about that because that's huge. Afraid to ask. Conspiracy theories. So what's happened? We stopped asking. We stopped digging. We stopped thinking critically, and that's dangerous. And that is so dangerous. So just let me be clear. These are real conspiracy theories. There are real ones, I should say, out there. There is misinformation. There's some crazy stuff. And there are people who push narratives without evidence. But here's the problem. When everything gets lumped into the same category, we lose the ability to separate what's false from what might actually deserve scrutiny. And I think a lot of this shift started during the administration of who? Donald Trump. Yes, that era brought a constant wave of controversy, headlines, and breaking news. Every day, something new. I'm looking in the news cycle. It's become so intense. I don't even like to watch the news sometimes. I just turn it off. I mean, it's so intense that things which once have been stopped, that have stopped this country in its tracks, start to feel normal. I mean, we get a school shooting. It's like, oh, well, what happens next? They're not going to do anything about the gun. I mean, we have become normalized to a lot of the stuff that's happening in this country. We're starting to feel normal. That's what normalization looks like. Not because people agree with it, but because they become numb to it. Numb. We had another presidential shooting, supposed presidential shooting, which we'll talk about. And when everything feels extreme, nothing feels extreme anymore. It doesn't feel extreme anymore. Now let's just fast forward to today. We're in a different administration, but the environment hasn't changed much. Social media is flooded with theories, speculations, and questions about current events. And again, the same fear shows up. Don't ask too much. Don't look too deep. Don't question it, or you'll be labeled. I'm afraid to even talk about stuff like that because people come into my comments saying all kind of crazy stuff. And people think I'm crazy. But I'm not stupid. When something doesn't look right, you ask about that. Don't look right. You didn't do that right. Something's not right here. But here's the real question. Is it wrong to ask question? Is it wrong to look in the event and say something doesn't make sense here? Is it wrong to expect transparency, especially when it comes to government, security, or elections? Because in a democracy, the people have a right to know. Now, that doesn't mean jumping to conclusion. It doesn't mean believe everything you see online, because there are some things out there, Lord knows there are some things out there, and you got to fact check just about everything you get on the internet. And people, let me just tell you, if you're looking for news, go to reputable news sources. I know you hate mainstream media, but they fact check and they don't just throw stuff out there. Maybe Fox News, you got to check that one out, because they may not tell lies, but they don't give you the entire truth, you know. But sources like NPR, CNN, yes, MS Now, former MSNBC, ABC, check reputable sources, magazines, things that are reputable, New York Times, Wall Street, things that are reputable. Don't listen to everything you see. Always fact check. But does this mean we should be able to ask what happened? How did it happen? Could it have been prevented? And what are we not being told? These are not conspiracy theories. These are accountability questions. And here's where things get even more complicated. When credible analysts, journalists, or data experts raise concerns, sometimes those concerns don't get explored. They get ignored. And I can tell you about one that I have covered a whole podcast on, and that was the 2024 election. There was a credible source. It's called the Election Alliance. What they do is they break down all election trends and everything, and they give you all kinds of data. They dove deep into the 2024 election, and they discovered some anomalies. Guys, in early voting, the swing state voting trend looked almost identical. Almost identical. I mean, it was almost without a fault that there were lots of people that voted all the way down ballot, voted for one party, Democrat, but for president, they voted for Donald Trump. That doesn't make sense in only the swing states. So fast forward to the election day, those trends were not there. They were not there. And what's the difference between election day versus early voting? Time. Computers. Time for people to get in there and do some things. And these people at the Election Alliance, they were actually on a credible political analyst. Roland Martin had these guys on the show. They presented the evidence. And they even wrote a letter to Kamala Harris's campaign telling them, please, can we at least talk about this? Nobody mentioned a word, because conspiracy theories have a bad name because of Donald Trump. Now, here's the difference between a conspiracy theory from our side, the 2024 election, and what Donald Trump did. Donald Trump actually tried to go in and had people check it. All the courts said, nope. It was vetted. But in the 2024, we did nothing. And people were sounding alarmed. All of these people that have forecast elections for years and years and years, the voting things, the gambling things, everybody had Kamala winning. Alan Lichtman, a guy who has not missed an election prediction almost never, he was off. I mean, it was all kinds of things that were wrong. And then there's this fact that whenever you see data, for those of you that are in corporate America, there's a bell curve of how things work. This one particularly did not have that traditional bell curve of how things in data should happen. It wasn't there. It had more of a Russian bell curve, which in turn was the same thing that Putin uses in his elections. So they had all these facts and nobody did anything. So when credible analysts, journalists, or data experts raise concerns, sometimes those concerns don't get explored. They get ignored. Not necessarily because they're wrong, but because engaging with them might seem as dangerous. That's the chilling effect. People don't want to be associated with controversy. I don't either. They don't want to lose credibility. They don't want to be labeled. So instead of investigating, we avoid it. Instead of discussing, we dismiss. And slowly, truth becomes diluted. Not because it doesn't exist, but because no one wants to touch it. So where does that leave us? In a place where trust is low, questions are high, and honest conversation is rare. But I believe this. We can walk a line. We can be responsible and curious. We can demand evidence and ask hard questions. We can reject misinformation without rejecting inquiry. Because once a society becomes afraid to ask questions, that's when the real danger begins. So I'll leave you with this. Are we protecting the truth? Or are we protecting ourselves from being judged for it? The 2024 election should have been looked into. These assassination attempts. There's some questions. I mean, those are conversations that need to be had. And it starts right here. It starts right here. So I want to show you a video that my girl, politics girl, Lee McGowan, she's a credible political analyst. She started during COVID, just doing things from her living room. And now she's written a book and she's credible. She's been on Abby Phillips' show on CNN. They reach out to her for information. She does her fact checking and she does a lot of stuff, but she has questions. And she knew by saying this that a lot of people, professional, close to her, were going to come and say, dee 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 dee. Have you gone crazy, Lee? But I want you to listen to what she says. It makes a lot of sense. And then we'll talk about it on the other side. Here we go.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. So I would like to talk a little bit about the people who are responding to this White House Correspondents' Dinner event by saying, hey, don't be a conspiracy theorist. Don't fall into their trap. Don't go down a rabbit hole. And some of those people are my friends and they're people that I respect. But I just want to say personally, I am past that. To me, we have tried taking the high road. And to me, those days are over. The entire White House Correspondents' Dinner was weird, beginning to end. As someone smarter than me said, look, I'm no security expert, but even I know if there is a real attempt to kill the president, you take the vice president to a separate and secure location. That never happened. That is obvious. And it never happened. Even if you take these people at their word that this was a real threat, you still had Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, Mike Johnson, Kash Patel, and almost every member of the cabinet in the same room at the same time during an active war, and someone was still able to get in the building with a gun? The Secret Service is either completely incompetent or totally complicit. Then they move from the hotel to the White House and they put the entire line of succession in the same room again. And there they are, laughing, joking, smirking, having this press conference about their desperate need for a ballroom. So no, I'm over this. This was not a real assassination attempt. And I am also ready to say that it was not a real assassination attempt in Butler during the campaign. Yeah, 2 real people died, but no one tried to kill Donald Trump. And we can confirm that because Trump literally never talks about it. This is a man who cannot let a single slight towards him go. He is currently using the Justice Department as his very own personal vendetta squad. This is a man who is still bitching about Rosie O'Donnell 30 years later, but he never mentions the time he almost had his head blown off. That is impossible. And saying that doesn't make me a conspiracy theorist. It makes me a logical person coming to conclusions based on evidence. As I said back during the campaign, there is just no way the Secret Service allowed a shooter to get on the roof with a perfect visual, clear line of sight to the stage. There is no way that all the police who were told, hey, there's a guy on that roof with a gun, just ignored it. There is no way security moved the photographers over for the perfect shot after the president went down, or that crane just happened to lower the flag at the perfect time for the most well-known coward of a man to get his entire upper body above the Secret Service for that perfect shot. Americans know from years of stories about how Secret Service agents behave during an assassination attempt. Donald Trump should have been covered, rushed to a car, his feet shouldn't even have touched the ground. And for the love of God, there is no way an almost 80-year-old ear was shot, and there is not a single scar today. There are those of us who got piercings 30 years ago, and it's still not healed. So I'm sorry, but I am not buying what you're selling. At the time, we all knew that situation was bullshit, but we didn't make a fuss because we didn't want to sound like tinfoil hat wearing netters. We were trying to be responsible. We didn't want to undermine a real assassination attempt if it turned out to be legitimate, despite the fact that it all seemed so fake. But then there was no investigation. We never saw a single medical report. I bet you couldn't even tell me the name of the shooter. And ultimately, it accomplished exactly what it was meant to. It changed the course of the election. It made Trump a folk hero or someone chosen by God. And he had that fight, fight, fight march ready to go the next day. Then we have the 2024 election, which felt deeply off. And yeah, maybe if we had done a full investigation into all of those swing states or the polling places that were bombed, it would have come out that it was all fair, it was all fine, and then he won. But we didn't even look into it because we didn't want to look like Stop the Steelers. We didn't want to look like them. Then Elon does so much shady stuff around the election and then with Doge, and we don't challenge it because we don't act like crazy people. But to me, that's part of the plan. You make the people who question elections and assassination attempts look like crazy people, so people won't question it, even if it makes sense to question because they don't want you to think they're crazy. Well, I know I'm not crazy. A real event happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. A man ran through a checkpoint. What happened after that? No idea. I mean, we've been given a manifesto, but it reads about as realistically as the Charlie Kirk shooter's letter to his roommate. Almost as if the same person wrote it. Disbelief around this event is not our fault. Crazy and illogical things keep happening, all centered around a man who has lied and conned people his entire life. So it's not our fault if we have questions. It is the fault of the perpetual lies that have been fed to our society. We're just not buying what you're selling anymore. We cannot keep giving these people the benefit of the doubt. Being the bigger person has left us near powerless and our country in shambles. And if you really need to explain to yourself why you're questioning it, look no further than the picture of Pete Hegseth right after the press conference. There was just a shooting. And this is what our Secretary of Defense looks like in the wings. So it's not a conspiracy theorist who thinks this behavior is suspect. It is a logical person who is now questioning the narrative we are being fed.
All right. Lot, Lee. That was perfect. You did it perfectly. So the photo that she was showing of Pete Hegseth, right after all the shooting, he's in the wings on stage laughing and chatting. I mean, the president almost got killed. Why is nobody distressed? Why is nobody afraid? Why are they all so calm and standing around talking about the ballroom? Something ain't right, guys. And I have to agree with everything that Lee just said. Everything that she said doesn't make sense. So as a concerned American, I want some answers. I want some answers. And I know that with God, everything dark is going to come into the light. Somebody's going to slip up and something's going to come out. We will get the truth. I mean, if something happened and it was the truth and it really happened, then that's the truth. The truth is the truth no matter what it is. But we have questions until then. So if you're like me, and you felt like something ain't right about the Butler thing or the assassination attempts, something ain't right, then you have to ask questions. You don't have to feel like, there were some Trump conspiracy theories that, of all of his things that he has going on, is some crazies in his camp that have some crazy conspiracy theories. Like Barack works with the Russians and all kinds. I've heard all kinds of stuff, But, a lot of that isn't true, but... Here we go, not being able to ask questions because we're being labeled. And that's Democrats. We always take the darn high road. I'm sorry, Michelle. The higher, lower thing, it just don't work this time. It just don't work. We got to fight, and we got to fight hard about it. So I asked myself this question. People died, though. Would they go to this length to have an innocent bystander man in Butler up in the stands get shot? Or maybe that was a mistake and they were trying not to shoot somebody and it happened. That's possible. Who knows? And then the little kid that actually had the gun, they killed him. They killed the little guy that was up there, he's dead. So somebody shot him. So that means that maybe everybody's, I don't know. And you're saying, how's everybody in on this? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. Maybe the one that shot him was somebody that didn't know this was going on and shot him for real, but he wasn't really supposed to be shot. I'm just making stuff up here because I'm not trying to give you any facts or whatever, but I'm saying questions I have because, and then there's the whole ear thing. Yep, the whole ear thing with Trump. Where's the scar? He supposedly got hit. He was bleeding. I mean, we saw blood, so I don't know. I don't know. So that one, the Butler one, that one to me, I don't know. But the other one, that was just too crazy. Too crazy. And then the guy, I mean, they caught him. Most of the time when I've seen Secret Service, they have shot and killed. But the guy, the only shot that was fired wasn't even fired by him. It was fired by another Secret Service agent that shot their own. He was in a vest, so he's okay and everything. So there are questions, guys. So don't be afraid to ask questions, and they can label you whatever they want. But when things don't look right, they don't look right. Yeah, they don't look right. So something just as important as asking questions is this whole thing about lowering the temperature in this country, because right now we're in a divided way that goes beyond politics. It's personal. I mean, and friendships are breaking. Families aren't speaking. People are choosing sides and refusing to listen to anything outside of their lane. That's not healthy. And that's not sustainable. And honestly, that's not who we're supposed to be as Americans. We allowed political tribalism take over our thinking, but it's no longer about ideas. It's about identity. It's your side says it, you defend it. If the other side says it, you reject it. No questions asked, no thought required, just loyalty. But here's the truth. Blind loyalty on any side is dangerous because it removes accountability. Yes. It replaces critical thinking and emotional reaction. It turns neighbors into enemies. And that's not realistic. But what we've lost is the ability to disagree without disrespect, to debate without division, to challenge ideas without attacking people. We need to get back to a place where we can say, I hear you and I don't agree, but I respect your right to think differently, because if we can't do that, then we're not having conversations anymore. We're just having conflicts and we need to do something about it. We need to do something about it. Now, here's something else we need to understand. The louder the division gets, the easier it is for the truth to get lost in the noise. Let me say that again. The louder the division gets, the easier it is for the truth to get lost in the noise. Because when everything becomes about winning, nothing becomes about understanding. So how do we lower the temperature? It starts with us, not the media, not the politicians. We have to be willing to listen even when it's uncomfortable. Because everybody's blaming each other. You're the reason why these crazies are coming out, because you're talking about Donald Trump as this. And you're saying he's a dictator and all kinds of things, and we're causing that. I don't know what to think about all that, because people that have weak minds are going to believe what they want to believe. And they're going to be looking at what we're putting out on social media and what we're saying. So we have to be careful about that kind of stuff. We have to be willing to listen. I try my damnedest to get MAGA people to talk to me, but I don't think they really have the brain to talk to you. They just want to call me Grandpapa and all kinds of crazy names. I talk about my glasses, which I wear different glasses. I know I wear crazy glasses. And when it's uncomfortable, we have to be willing to question our own beliefs, not just someone else's. And we have to stop treating every disagreement like it's a battle that has to be won, because it doesn't. Sometimes it just needs to be understood if we can do that. And I have graciously tried to understand some of the things that Republicans are saying and wanting. I try to understand them. I try to listen from their point of view, but there's certain things that you just can't listen to. Certain things just are moral and value. And how can you debate this? How can you debate cutting off USAID aid to starving Africans in other countries and giving them food. How can you debate that? How can you morally say, let's not do that anymore? If you can give me a spin on why we're not doing that anymore, somebody tell me, because I don't understand that one. That was a harsh cut by the Trump administration. If we could just bring a little more patience, a little more humility, and a little more respect into our conversations, then maybe, just maybe we can find a way to start finding our way back to each other. I literally try to talk to these MAGA folks that come into my comments because they hate me. They know I'm a liberal, a breeding liberal. And they call me all kinds of names, pansy, whatever. It doesn't bother me. Social media noise doesn't bother me. But you can't get a conversation out of these guys. You really can't. Because a lot of them, they have no idea about the issue. All they care about is Donald Trump is fighting for our rights. What are those? They don't even know how to articulate that. And you try, but I've given up on them. I've given up. I just given up. I don't even fight with them in comments or anything like that. Sometimes I might be a little condescending and say a few things here and there just to make them feel stupid, but that's just me. Oh well, and I feel good about it too. So I'll let that out, because some of them are like, "Oh my God, who told you this?" But by choosing to listen better, we can do better. We can do better. So I want you to listen to this thing about one of my favorite commentators on people supporting Trump. You just can't be a good person. I like the way he articulates this. And then we're going to listen to him again talk about stupid Americans. Let's listen to why you can't be a good person and support Donald Trump, because I'm in 100% agreement. His name is TJ. He's out on social media. And he's a political activist as well. And he has a political platform. And I love listening to him. Here we go, TJ. Speak to us.
I can't be a good person and support Donald Trump. And before you get mad, listen to what I'm actually saying, because this isn't about party. It's not about vibes. It's about values. Being a good person means you draw lines. It means there are things you won't excuse. There are behaviors you won't normalize. There are people that you won't empower. And Donald Trump has shown us repeatedly who he is. He mocks the vulnerable. He lies without shame. He praises cruelty when it benefits him. He attacks the press, the courts, and democracy itself when they don't serve him. He fuels division, resentment, and fear on purpose. So you don't get to say you care about people while backing someone who dehumanizes immigrants. You don't get to say you respect women while excusing SA allegations, bragging about abuse, and stripping bodily autonomy. You don't get to say you love freedom while supporting a man who openly admires authoritarian leaders and tries to overturn elections. This isn't about policy disagreements. This is about character. At some point, who you support becomes a reflection of what you're willing to tolerate. And if you're willing to tolerate racism, corruption, cruelty, and attacks on democracy, then yeah, I'm going to question the whole good person label. Because being good isn't about what you say you believe. It's about what you're willing to stand against, even when it's inconvenient. And Donald Trump should have been that line.
Okay. I totally agree with you, TJ Talks is his handle. You can find him on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. He does some great, comprehensive of talks, and he's really, really good, and I enjoy listening to him. So now let's listen to TJ Talks about stupid American. This one's good. Take a listen.
And uncomfortable, and I don't care if it offends you because it's the truth. There is a massive chunk of this country that is functionally stupid. Not just uneducated, not misinformed. I'm talking about people who lack the ability to process facts, apply logic, or think critically. I've stopped trying to win MAGA over. So if you're MAGA and you want to pick a fight with me, don't waste your time, because I won't waste mine. These aren't people you can debate. They don't respond to reason. They don't change because you gave them the data. They respond to emotion, to fear, to blame. And while liberals are writing think pieces and hosting panel talks, Trump and people like him are giving stupid people simple villains and easy answers. It's the immigrants, it's the gays, it's the black people. And that's all it takes. These people vote. They show up and they are dragging this country backward. Call it elitist if you want, but stupidity is a national security threat. Because when people can't process reality, they become tools for whoever feeds them the right lie. This isn't about winning hearts and minds anymore. It's about protecting truth, protecting democracy. And if we keep pretending they're just misinformed, we'll keep losing the people who aren't just wrong. They're incapable of knowing they're wrong. And they're steering this country straight into collapse. I can't stand stupid people. I'm going to say something.
I can't either, TJ. I can't stand stupid people. I'm telling you, he's done exactly what I've done with the MAGA folks. So I know they're just like berating his comments because he's extremely liberal and he's extremely calling out Donald Trump. And so they find us and they're in our comments. Oh my God, they're in our comments. Yeah, so, and you just have to just ignore them. If I come along someone that wants to have a reasonable conversation, we can do that. And if I've actually made headway with one that actually has said, I've had people say, I never thought of it like that. That was progress. Well, I guess that's one way to think about it. That was progress. And even on my side, I've even said, well, I can understand the way you feel about that. I can understand that. That's having a real conversation and trying to learn about our different cultures, our different needs as Americans, because as a black American, we have different needs. I mean, as people, we have the same needs, but there are some things that we need in our communities that you already have or have accomplished, but we're just not getting there. And we know the reason for that, right? We do. So those were two good things from TJ, which I love him for. All right, let's go and segue into the Voting Rights Act and what has happened there. I just want to go a step deeper because this isn't just opinion, this is law. So let me just give you a little. Back in 1965, Congress passed the Voting Rights Act. It's one of the most powerful provisions. Section 5 said this: no voting qualification or prerequisite to voting shall be imposed unless the change has been submitted to and approved by the federal government. Let me break that down in plain English for you. Certain states, make this just a little smaller. Let me break this down. Certain states, okay, had to show, anytime they mixed with the maps, they had to go to the Supreme Court and the courts. I shouldn't say the Supreme Court. They had to go to a federal entity and tell them what they were doing them because of the history of what they did in the past. They were blatantly trying to keep black people from voting. All right. So these standards were set up in the. Let me go back here. I'll make sure I have a graphic I want to show you. Let me show you this graphic. And let me show you this graphic so I can explain it a little bit better. All right, so I'll talk about it. So Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act required certain states to get federal approval before changing voting laws. And this was designed to stop literacy tests, stop the whole poll taxes and all the stuff, and stop discriminatory redistricting. That's Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. This is what was gutted, all right? So what the Supreme Court did, in simple terms, there was it was Shelby versus Holder. These are some of the things that they've done. They struck down the coverage formula, Section 4B. Results pre-clearance, Section 5 became unenforceable. So they don't have to get pre-cleared anymore, all right? And then in Brnovich versus Democratic National Committee, it made it harder for challenging voting redistricting under Section 2, introduced a more state-friendly standard. So they've been chipping away at this Voting Rights Act for a long time. So let me just put this like this, okay? Ever since we got a black president, this whole country has went crazy. Regardless of the fact that he did win president, he was president, there was a whole section of the country that did not want a black man president ever. These people still live here, and a lot of them are your grandparents. A lot of people, when the Civil Rights Act was written, or the Voting Rights Act, did not agree with it. Those people are still with him. They're still here. They are your grandfather. And they are people that have birthed kids, and they have passed this thing on. There's a whole sector of America that does not believe this. So now, here's the deal. So now they're thinking, we don't need all this stuff because the racism is gone in the South. We don't need that. Guys, the only way that I am here on this podcast, being able to do my own thing, buy my own house, live in my own neighborhood next to whomever I want to, is because of the Housing Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the Civil Rights Act. Because if those laws were not in place, we as black Americans would not have any of these rights. That's the only reason why we're able to do anything. Do y'all get that? And when you chip away to our protection, we're freaking out. Because now what's happening is these states, the Supreme Court is opened up so these states can go back and redo the maps however they want. So all of the representation that we have in Congress right now, was it 50 something? I don't know how many it is. In Congress right now could just go away. They're going to dilute our vote. Now let's talk about that when you talk about voting. All right, so we have the executive branch. We have the congressional branch and the Senate and the judiciary, and then we have the congressional branch. Okay, the congressional branch is supposed to be us, the people. Everything is broken down to these districts. So I'm in Jasmine Crockett's District 30, okay? So whenever our concerns are, she takes back to the people. So she does what we need in our little quadrant area. Those are our needs, and Jasmine is our representative. So that's me, Jasmine. Do y'all get that? So what this bill is going to allow them to do is it's going to dilute anything. I think that neighborhoods and whatever should have representation of some sort. Because what I need here in my neighborhood, you might not need in Highland Park, rich part of Dallas. So, and what's going to happen is we are in a minority. What they're going to do, or what they have done, is to put us in a district where we are definitely the minority, and they're going to add probably more of a Anglo district. So we're diluted. We'll never get a representation of our own. We have to just pray that who's ever representing our district is somebody that we care about. Is that always going to happen? It might sometimes. But will it always? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. And that's the scary part of it. Now, these are the kind of things that shape the direction of our country. And whether you supported Donald Trump or you didn't, whether you support the current administration or you don't, the standard has to stay the same. We cannot pick and choose when accountability matters. We cannot demand transparency from one side and ignore it from other, because the moment we do, we stop being citizens and we start becoming spectators. We have a right to ask. We have a right to ask. So, I am wondering here if the Voting Rights Act that we just gutted is going to kill things. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Because, let's see. Without the federal approval, what now? Why? Because those states had a documented history of suppressing black voters. We're talking about literacy tests, poll taxes, outright intimidation. And it wasn't random. It was deliberate. It was targeted protection. So then we fast forward to 2013, Shelby County, the Supreme Court said, our country has changed. And because of that, they ruled that the formula that used to decide which states needed federal oversight was unconstitutional. Now here's the key point. They did not remove Section 5 itself, but they removed the formula that made it enforceable. And without that formula, pre-clearance has stopped. Just like that. They don't have to do it anymore. So they don't have to come anymore. They can just redraw the map without coming to a federal body to get approval. Now think about that. That means the rule still exists on paper, but the mechanism to enforce it is gone. That's like having a security system with no alarm. All right? Now, supporters of the decision said, the country has made progress. The conditions that justified this law in 1965 no longer applied in the same way. They argued states should be treated equally. What is going on right now? Gerrymandering. It's happening right now. But critics said something very differently. They said removing preclearance was like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you're not getting wet. That quote came directly from the dissent. Because the protection was working, and removing it didn't mean the problem was out. It meant the oversight was gone. So we're going to go to 2021, and the Brnovich versus Democratic National Committee further narrowed how voting laws could be challenged. The court said that not every voting burden is discrimination, and that states have a legitimate interest in preventing fraud. But critics argued that decision made it harder to prove when voting laws have discriminatory impacts. So you have to prove it. How are you going to prove it when it's done so subtly? So now we have to ask ourselves, why did these protections exist in the first place? Because history shows us without oversights, access to voting have been restricted before, not hypothetically, factually, and when the rules change, it's not unreasonable to ask, who does this affect? Who benefits? Why did you change the district? And when you can see that you have taken a once strong black, African American, Latino district, or whatever, and you've diluted it by adding a whole lot of Anglo people on it, what have you done? You've made it harder for that black representative to sponsor the interests of his constituents. He now has a whole nother group of people he has to deal with. And these are not conspiracy theories, guys. This is constitutional law. This is American history. American history. And this is exactly why. We must continue to ask questions, because when it comes to voting, silence is not neutral. It's consequential, and we need to ask questions. So I want you to listen to, I have a cavalcade here of people on the voting rights deal. I want to start with this angry guy who really explains it, because guys, the only reason why we did this is because you wouldn't do right. And I'm talking specifically to white men. Mr. Power hungry white men. You don't want to lose power, and I don't see you going to do right with this whole loosening of the law. But listen to this guy. His passion is encouraging.
Apocalypse. The only fucking reason why we needed the goddamn Voting Rights Act in the first place is because of white men. I don't care that you don't fucking see the value in it. Neither did your great-grandfather. And that's the fucking reason we have it. It got passed in the fucking 60s. I am tired of it. I'm tired of fucking pretending that the motherfuckers responsible for us needing it aren't alive. They're alive, and you call them grandma. So no, white boy, I don't care what the fuck you think about the goddamn Voting Rights Act. I don't care. I don't care what any white person thinks about it. At fucking all. Because the only reason we need any of this shit is because white people needed to be told in writing not to be awful. That's why. You guys don't like that part, but that's what laws are. They're telling you not to be a piece of shit. It's very weird that we have so many fucking laws surrounding race because white men won't fucking be better. They won't be better. They won't do better. It doesn't fucking matter what year it is. In the year of our Lord, 2026, we are still discussing the merits of black people fucking voting because you are not different than your fucking ancestors.
That passion, I totally feel that with him. The only reason we have these laws, guys, is because of that. Because nobody will do the right thing. All we want to do is to vote just like you. Equally. Right. We have congressional districts. We have to come up with a way that we can do these districts so it's fair to everybody. Everybody gets representation. If we have a complete all-white male Congress, who are you representing? How are you going to know much about the black community? I mean, there might be some that do. I'm not saying that they don't. There are some great white politicians that I support and white men that I support. But there's a whole lot of bad apples out there too, guys, especially in the South. Those sentiments have not left the South, guys. They haven't left the South. They're still there. They're just like low tone. And they're sneaky with it. All right, so I want you to listen to Professor Eddie Glaude on voting rights. His passion was inspiring, but then I learned a little backstory about him that I got to tell you about. So we'll come back and discuss Professor after his very, very inspiring reaction to the Supreme Court decision. Here we go, Professor Ed Glaude.
I'm here, Nicole.
Why?
Because I'm really upset.
That's okay.
You get tired of people playing fast and loose with your dead. Mm-hmm. And it was triggered by Obama. You know how many dead people are in the bottom of rivers in Mississippi because they tried to vote? Mm-hmm. How many dead folk, right? Folk who have wounds because of this. And here we are in this moment in the country's history, and we have to deal with this again. You see what I mean? So you think about the glorious revolution, our glorious revolution that produced the Constitution. The courts restrained it, limited it. Dred Scott doesn't extend to us. You think about the Civil War, left 600,000 plus dead. Get the Reconstruction Amendments. We finally look like we're going to try to become a democracy. What do we get? The courts. Slaughterhouse cases. Reduces it. Rolls it back. And now here we are. We've only been a democracy since 1965. Barely then. 15 years later, Reagan is elected, Mobile decision happens, right? Roberts begins his career right there. And so here we are. It's exhausting. And so, yes, we have to get together. Yes, we have to mobilize. Yes, we have to organize. But these people play fast and loose with our dead. They play fast and loose with our sacrifices. They think they own freedom. They can give it to us and take it away whenever they want. And they think we're just supposed to sit here and take this, right? So first of all, I'm just going to express my rage at this decision. And then the second thing we need to do, of course, is to get about the hard work of trying to salvage this democracy as we've done since the moment we've been on these shores.
Where does the first part of it end and the second part begin?
The first part of it ends when we admit, honestly, that racism still occupies the throne of this country. There's nothing about our current days that should lead us to believe that we are in a post-racial world. There's nothing about our days. And then once we admit that, admit of our sins, then perhaps we open up a future for us to be otherwise. But the noble lie isn't noble at all. Racism still occupies the throne of this country. And that's clear to me. I'm trying to keep myself calm here, Nicole.
What?
All right, so that was Professor Ed Glaude, and he is a professor. I can't remember what college he's at. I have to look that up. But anyway, I was looking at this clip, And I was so enamored by what he was saying. He was inspiring. And I've always liked him on MSNBC. He was really good. And then I noticed that there was all this hate going against him in the comments. I go, what's going on? What is going on? I didn't know what was going on. So I had to do some research and come to find out the reason why everybody was going so bad on him was because during the election, the first election of Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, Mr. Glaude, he actually told black people to stay at home and don't vote for either candidate because he was disenfranchised by the Democrat. He actually lobbied a lot of that. We don't know how much of an influence he had, but he actually was telling people to stay at home and don't vote for either candidate. And some of that same energy was passed on to the 2024 election. I don't know if he actually said anything about the 2024 election specifically, but he did about the 2016. So people were letting him have it. How dare you? You're part of the reason why they're saying you're part of the reason why we're in this boat, because you told black people to stay home and not vote, which caused a lot of people not to go out and stay on the couch and that put Donald Trump in. We can blame a lot of people that helped put Donald Trump in, but that was what all the noise was about. And after I actually saw what he wrote, and he's apologized. He's written an apology, said that he shouldn't have done that. He now knows that he shouldn't have done that he sees the danger that Donald Trump does, and he did not know that. He thought that Donald Trump was going to lose and nobody would vote on him. If people didn't go, it would help the margins and whatever. He had a crazy theory that was going to happen, and Donald Trump ended up winning, of course. So now he's apologized. So, of course, we as black people, we're hard on apologies. We're not taking it. And so they kind of let him have it about that. But I still do love what he said here about the Voting Rights Act, but shame on you for 2016. Shame on you for that, because that was not good. So going to that point and black people not voting, listen to Isaac Hayes III, which is Isaac Hayes' son. And he's a really smart guy. Not that I don't know any reason why, but usually musician children or whatever, they usually take different kind of stances. They're not so political, but he's got some good stuff on his Instagram. But he's giving you his theory on the reason why we're letting these Donald Trumps in office, black people, when we got this voting power, and we're not executing it right, exercising it either. So listen to what he says. It makes a lot of sense, and it's factual. Here we go.
Straight for y'all keep running your mouth. The strongest provisions of the Voting Rights Act have been removed by a majority Republican Supreme Court. That affects black people, so there is no two sides of the same bird. Republicans don't want black people to vote. Democrats do. Now, for those of you that say stop blaming black men for not voting for Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton and start putting these 85% of black men voted stat, that's not the issue. It's not about the black men that voted for Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton. It's about the black people that did not vote at all. Did you know out of the 40 plus million black people that are in the United States of America, 30 million are of the age to vote? Of those 30 million, only 20 million are registered to vote. That means 10 million people, 10 million black people in this country are not registered to vote. Because of this decision by the Supreme Court, every single black person in the United States of America of voting age should register to vote right now. You're not fooling anybody with that stat. 85% of black men voted for Hillary. You didn't vote. We know you didn't vote because you was talking that bullshit about two sides of the same bird. I'm just going to sit at home on the couch and all that. And this is where it's gotten us. So cut that shit out. All right? You're not fooling nobody. That's not a stat to throw around like you won some shit, like you telling some. No, you don't vote at all. You don't vote locally. You don't vote nationally. You don't vote at all. And that's the problem. We got to start voting, like as a culture, as a practice, as a people, because elections are simple. Majority rules. If you don't participate, somebody decides for you. I'm tired of that happening for us in places where I know we can win elections, in places like Georgia, in places like Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana. I'm tired of it. No, there's no excuse. Every single black person in this country should register to vote. Every single one. We need 30 million people to register to vote. It'll change the trajectory of black existence in this country tremendously, because we will shape rules that benefit us, particularly in the South, if you want to get real gutter with it. So cut all this bullshit out. It's not about not voting for Hillary Clinton or Kamala Harris. It's about not voting at all. And we know you didn't. And we're not listening to y'all no more. Your time is up. It didn't work. Party's over. See you in November.
Those are some great stats. And that's why I love Jasmine Crockett's campaign. She was trying to energize that non-voting group of black voters out there. Get registered, vote. We have so much power. We're not voting. We're not voting. We can pretty much push any election our way if we just get registered and vote. So all of you who have never voted before, shame on you. But that's okay. There's still time. Go get your voter registration card and be ready. If you need help with knowing about the candidates, we can help you. But we need to vote. And those of you that don't know much about the Voting Rights Act, read up on it. This is major to us. This is major to us. We have no protection anymore. The only way we as black people are able to live this world in this United States of America is because of laws and protection. We can still be out in the fields if this has never been written. If these laws have never been written. And what people don't realize, this wasn't that long ago, guys. It was like hundreds of years ago. Like he said, we became a democracy in 1965 when all this stuff was fixed. We were regular citizens after 1965. Has it gotten better? Yes. Is it the best it can be? No way. As long as you have that whole sector of people that still think that we're inferior, I don't know. What did we do to y'all? We try to build our own cities. We try to do our own thing, but y'all are still so... What is it? We just want equality. That's it. My God. So I have to let you listen to this particular one about how it all started in Louisiana. Jessica Dillard, a content creator, and she's from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and it's all about this one congressman that this whole battle in Louisiana started, and now the whole country is having to live with their internal mess. But listen to her explain the dynamics of what goes on in Louisiana. She's going to be putting up a lot of maps and things, so all of you get to see what the Louisiana map looks like and all that kind of stuff for the congressional voting map. Here you go.
Act was really about. Look, I was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This whole case is about a senator named Cleo Fields. If you are from Louisiana, you know exactly who I'm talking about. If you're not, let me tell you about him. So Cleo Fields is a black Democrat from Baton Rouge. He's a state senator, he's an attorney, and for 30 years, he has been a thorn in the side of Republican leadership in Louisiana. So much so that the last time he held a congressional seat in the 1990s, they sued to take it away. The Supreme Court threw out his entire district and he was gone for 30 years. Then, in 2022, federal courts ordered Louisiana to stop cheating and draw a second majority black district. The state fought it for 2 years, finally complied. Cleo Fields ran and he won. He went back to Washington 30 years later. And before he finished his first year in office, they sued again. Now, I want you to look at two maps. This first one, the 2022 lines, one tiny blue district. That's New Orleans to Baton Rouge. That's it. One majority black district in a state where 1 out of 3 people is black. 6 congressional seats, 1 black voice. Louisiana called that fair. Federal courts called it what it was. Now look at the second map. That's the 2024 lines. The diagonal slash of blue from Shreveport all the way down through the Red River corridor to Baton Rouge. That is District 6. That's Cleo Fields district. That's what compliance looks like with the Voting Rights Act. That's what's proportional representation when a court orders a state to stop cheating. A group of self-described non-African American voters recruited by conservative anti-VRA lawyers sued to erase it before Fields was even sworn in. They argued that drawing a district to correct a discriminatory map was itself discrimination. Yesterday, the Supreme Court agreed. So look at that first map again. Just one blue dot. That's where we're headed. 30 years of one voice for a third of the population in Louisiana. Courts ordered to fix it. Fields won the seat, and they went straight back to the Supreme Court to make sure it doesn't happen again. This isn't a constitutional argument, y'all. This is a hit job with a legal brief attached. Stay steady, eyes open.
So y'all hear that story. One congressman, the whole state map is redone just to get him out of his district. Sounds like they did to Texas, to Jasmine Crockett. I believe that was pointed specifically at her to get her out of her district. But, you know, that's what I'm saying. They don't do right. So now we have no protections. No protections at all. Okay, so let's listen to this guy here who says that this law affects not only black people, it's going to affect everybody. And let's listen to his thoughts. Here we go.
Understand how gutting the Voting Rights Act impacts you, not just black people. Back in 1965, the Voting Rights Act was created to stop racial discrimination in voting. This is where folks get lost. The fuck am I? They don't take your ballot away, they just redraw the maps. Every 10 years, the states redraw their congressional districts. They decide which neighborhoods go into which districts, and that decides who your representative is. So, if black people make up 40% of a state, then they should have 40% of the influence. First one is called packing, and the other one is called cracking. You can look that shit up on your own time, because I'm here to talk to the Caucasians. And yes, that includes Indians, Mexicans, and Asians, because I know a lot of y'all voted for DT too, and because you have a little bit of an easier time indoctrinating yourself into whiteness. Don't believe me? Have you ever been called an Oreo? So this is why I say it matters to white people, because this administration is trying to treat everybody like black people. Remember Alex Preddy and Renee Good, the two white people that got killed in Minnesota and the whole country went ballistic? You really think that was the only people that got killed by ICE? No. Here's a list of minorities that also got killed that you probably never heard about. Now what you've seen from Renee Good and Alex Preddy is the type of treatment that black folks have been going through forever. Now white folks, I want you to listen very, very clearly. Your racism doesn't necessarily come from using the N-word. It comes from your silence. It comes from your lack of acknowledgement of honoring and respecting the history of what this place has gone through and how it has treated certain groups of people. And that lack of acknowledgement is the America propaganda system speaking through you. How many of you thought racism ended in 1865 when slavery was over? There are even black people who believe that. So they grow up in segregated societies, learning about people who don't look like us strictly through media influences. And you know what? We're pretty much brainwashed to believe that anyone who has darker pigmentation, their life just isn't as valued. Now, this administration knows they're probably not going to win, because they're not very popular, and they're going to do everything in their power to maintain in power, which is why when midterms come around, they're going to try to make sure our vote don't really matter. And I believe white folks are starting to wake up and can make a huge impact in this next election. So if you don't want to vote on behalf of protecting black people, then vote on behalf of protecting yourself. Because if you don't, we're all going to live in an economic totalitarian surveillance state, which is a lot like the ghetto.
All right, so that's his take on the whole Supreme Court deal. I've got one more, I think, video that I want to show you on a lady's assessment of the gutting of the Supreme Court. There's a lot of people talking, guys. It's noise out there. We're not happy about this. We are not happy about this at all. Here we go.
Okay, so this is a pretty important video. Please watch till the end. The Supreme Court today did something that they have been dying to do for decades, and it's devastating, particularly if you are a black or brown American. They gutted the Voting Rights Act. 6-3, straight down ideological lines. Before I explain what it means, I need you to hear one thing clearly. The Voting Rights Act ended Jim Crow at the ballot box. It protected the premise of fair and equal elections. That is what the conservative majority on this Supreme Court just came for. This is a truly dark day in our democracy. Now, conservatives, of course, will dress this up in legal language. They'll call it equal protection or say they're being colorblind. Don't get pulled into the semantics debate trap. Here's what's actually happening. The GOP and the conservative majority on this court are attacking black political power as a front to seize illegitimate control over all of us. When black voters have power, we all get better healthcare, better schools, more accountability. When conservatives silence that, they are setting up a system where they can overrule all of us. Justice Kagan, in one of the most extraordinary acts of protest you will ever see from a Supreme Court justice, read her dissent out loud from the bench. That never happens. She called this ruling what it is, the completed demolition of the Voting Rights Act. The numbers are brutal. Analysts are saying that up to 19 congressional seats could be seized by 2028. This would decimate the Congressional Black Caucus. Nearly half of majority black state legislative districts in the South could vanish. So this is not just a policy dispute, it is a power grab, and it is going to affect way more than just black and brown voters. Although obviously they are the ones hurt the most. Remember, step one is always sidelining black political power, because when black people show up, these people lose. So if they can sideline that, they can overrule all of us. That's how it works. That's always been the plan, and they're not even pretending it's not anymore. But I want to close with this. They have taken some tools, but they have not taken them all. There are lawsuits already in motion. More will come. We want to donate to the groups who are suing on our behalf. We need to use the 2026 elections to elect candidates who are committed to passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act at the first possible moment. And this is really important. We need to back candidates who support actual Supreme Court reform. I'm talking about term limits, a binding code of ethics, and maybe expanding the bench. This court is fundamentally broken, but remember, broken things can be fixed. Y'all, they are betting that we're going to get overwhelmed and give up. Don't give it to them. Grieve today, fight tomorrow. And finally, to any black or brown voter feeling devastated by today's ruling, I can't even imagine how you must feel, but I'm so fucking sorry. And I, for one, will not stop fighting until you get your freedom to vote back. You deserve so much better.
All right, that was a good assessment as well. So we've got some wonderful people talking in support of the Voting Rights Act. Now, as we close this episode, I want to bring this conversation back to something that matters more than politics. It's accountability. Because no matter who is in power, no matter what party they belong to, the American people have a responsibility to pay attention. And yes, that includes speaking up about politics and decisions we don't agree with. We've seen controversial actions from multiple administrators over the years around immigration policies, to question a few. These are the kind of things that shape the direction of our country. And whether you support Donald Trump or you didn't, whether you support the current administration or you don't, the standards has to stay the same. We cannot pick and choose when accountability matters. We can't demand transparency from one side and ignore it from another side. We stop being citizens the moment we do this. This country is built on the idea. It's built on the idea. When decisions are made, doesn't sit right, we have the right to ask, why? Who benefits? What are the consequences, and what does it mean for the future of this country? That's civic responsibility. Civic responsibility. But at the same time, we should never be afraid to speak up when something deserves to be examined. It's because silence doesn't protect truth, it protects comfort. And if we really care about this country, we have to be willing to step aside our comfort zone and hold everybody accountable. Because in the end, it isn't about being Democrat or Republican. It's about the future of America. And that future depends on whether we choose to stay silent or choose to stay engaged. I know where I stand. Where do you stand? Are you listening, people? Are you listening to what's going on in this country? We have went just 20 years back by having this thing gutted. That's why it's so very important that if you are not registered to vote, that you do that immediately in time for the midterm elections. Vote in every election. Your locals, all of them, vote. We have to vote, guys. We just do. And when you see something that's not right and you want to talk about it, you're welcome to come to my page. Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. I'm on all the socials. You can find me anywhere. And just talk about it. I'll be willing to talk with you. But we have to do something. We can't sit back and let Donald Trump and his minions destroy the American dream. Because that's what's happening. That is what's happening. So, stay engaged. I know where I stand. The question is, where do you stand? Stay woke. Thank you guys for this coming to this episode of Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. Be sure and like, share, subscribe to my podcast. I really appreciate it. You can listen to me wherever your podcasts are played. I'm on that platform. All right? So have a wonderful day. Bye now.